Ready?
Yes.
Hello, I'm Richard Vobes, the Bald Explorer, out on another exploration, and today I'm joined by the lovely Julia. Hello, Julia.
Hello, lovely Richard.
Julia, as you can probably tell, is on her way to delivering a baby.
Yes.
You're not a midwife,
not right
though.
now. I'm not on the way right now.
No, you're not a midwife.
But getting close.
Yes. So we can't do many walks at the moment together, but in order to get the lovely Julia out and strolling around, we thought what better place than to come to a churchyard. Yeah. Well, the thing is, we have a book here called the Church Explorer's Handbook. And it does every aspect of churches, and we thought we've got some beautiful weather, we'd come out and have a look around the churchyard. We often do videos where we've gone in and we look at the structure of the church, but just thought it'd be interesting to actually look at the features in a graveyard. Now this is a nice large churchyard, so hopefully we'll find lots of interesting things to look at. Now in the book it's got a whole list of different things, and one of the things to look at first of all in a churchyard is
the shape.
Yes, the shape. Now why is that important, Julia?
Well, most of them would have originally been circular in shape.
Ah, yeah.
Partly because it was the most sensible to encircle a
church. It's easier to circumnavigate, isn't it, if it's circular?
Yeah.
But also there's a much older reason.
Yes, because a lot of them were, as we know, built upon original pagan sites, which were circular.
Ah, now those pagan sites wouldn't necessarily have been where people were buried.
No, it wasn't necessarily related to death per se, but just the general pagan rituals and rites. Yes.
Yeah. Oh, how interesting. Well, this one, it's you know, over the years, of course, the original shape may have changed. So this one may not be circular now, but possibly it was.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, this is a perfect example of a churchyard, which is great for our video and for exploring. I should say that this is in Thacombe, which is a village in West Sussex, and it's St Mary's, and it's a beautiful one. Actually, I've made a video here of ringing the bells, so do check that out. It's a peaceful place.
It is.
People come and they sit down on the benches, and you know, they think about their loved ones. What a lovely place.
Yes, yes, but it wasn't always so in churchyards, was it?
That's true, actually, because lots of things went on around the church. It's the most significant building in a village, and of course up until the 1600s these tombstones, the headstones, wouldn't have been here, so there's a lot of space.
A nice open space to do things like wrestling, cockfighting,
fencing.
Yes, fencing, and various ball games like nine pins.
Oh yeah, they used to love their nine pins back in the day.
But in the medieval times is where the origins of current modern day fetes and fairs came about.
Yes, so the churchyard of course is the focus of the village. I mean, we mustn't forget that, and so all sorts of what we would consider as very bizarre now in a churchyard festivities took place.
A bit of gaiety.
Yeah, definitely, such as dancing, and
there'd be traders,
yes,
stalls, and
probably run around the maypole, that sort of thing.
Yeah, probably.
You'd have cattle in here, it's hard to believe. Traders selling stuff, all sorts of wares, probably itinerant peddlers coming in.
Probably some beer.
Oh, definitely beer, because they were called church ales. And ale was being made, the church made their own ale, and it's so far removed from what we see today.
Yes, now we see them as solemn buildings, don't we?
Absolutely. Now, Julia.
Richard.
Interesting thing. Behind us, you've got the church, obviously, and you've got the bell tower. I forget how old that particular one is, but that doesn't matter. The thing is, it's a bell tower.
It is.
Yeah, and you know what they have in a bell tower?
Ooh, bells?
Yes, bells. And bells are big metal things, and they're very heavy.
Yep.
Well, you know that particularly like in Sussex or the rest of the country, back in the 12th, 13th, 15th century, when they were starting to put bells in towers, roads would have been pretty hard and impassable.
Yeah, quite rutted without the tarmac. They didn't have tarmac back then for
no
some strange reason.
No, it hadn't been invented. Did you know that?
I did actually.
That wasn't the interesting thing, is that, but because transporting anything heavy like a bell, how do you suppose they did it?
Well, you see, Richard, they would cast it and make it right there in the churchyard.
Oh, right. Yeah, so you know that then, do you?
I did.
That's true. So some churchyards were actually used as foundries to cast the bell that went into the bell tower. Makes perfect sense.
It does, doesn't it?
Why carry it all that way on rutted roads?
Easier to bring the materials and do it here.
You smart ass.
Catch me next time. Got one for you, Richard.
Oh, you got one for me? Go on then.
What's the butts?
The butts?
The butts.
Well, I know what my butt is, and it's a very fine butt, if I may say so.
I won't mention anything about that.
Oh.
But if you see a sign for the butts,
yeah,
it's a sure sign that there used to be ancient practice of archery.
Oh yes, archery, of course, it's all coming back now.
Yeah.
Yeah, isn't it the butts, because you see like modern signs on a housing estate, there'll be an area often in small villages and things like that saying the butts, and that's where people practice their archery. But why was that?
Well, Edward IV made a decree that every able-bodied man should have and should own a longbow of his own height and practice regularly.
Yeah, that's right.
And of course churches were on the edge of fortifications and stuff at the times, weren't they? That's
true, yeah. So it was again a great place to practice archery in a churchyard.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Those longbows that you mentioned, they were often made of
yew.
Not made of me.
No, they were made of yew.
Yeah, and that's where you get the two-fingered salute, wasn't it? After Agincourt.
Yes.
That was to prove that...
they would show off that they still had those two fingers, because if they got caught, they would have those two fingers cut off, so they couldn't fire a bow again.
Those damn Frenchies. Anyway, I'm not going to show you my two-fingered salute.
No, I won't show you my butt either.
Oh. So, hey, Julia, correct me if I'm wrong, that... Oh, sorry. That is a yew tree.
It is a yew tree.
Yeah.
It's a very manicured yew tree.
It is manicured, isn't it?
I personally prefer them all wild and...
Yeah, no. When you've got those branches coming out and they, you know, they look like they've been here for thousands of years.
Yes, they're much more suited to a graveyard, I think.
That's right. But this is a very traditional English yew, though, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It is.
And is that not right? That you know, that's the yews from the churchyards that they were using for the longbows?
Well, that's actually a common misconception, because...
Right.
The English yew wasn't really best suited for the longbows.
Oh.
It was Portuguese and Spanish yew that was better for that.
Oh, you learn something every day. So, there was I thinking that the English yew was the source of the English longbow, but there you are. So, but I know you've been reading, and there's another theory, isn't there, as to why the English yew is in an English churchyard.
Yes, and that is based upon the fact that it is a toxic plant, all but the berry, to cattle and sheep.
Yeah.
And that the farmers would not want their cattle wandering onto the graveyards.
Well, no, I suppose they wouldn't, because otherwise they'd all collapse and die.
Yes, quite. So they would have to put up their own fencing.
Right.
Which I think is why the priests would encourage or allow yews to grow on the churchyards.
Oh, that's very clever. So that the farmers have got the expense of putting up and maintaining the boundaries, and not the church.
That's right.
Yeah, that's a good theory.
Yeah, I think it's a theory, isn't it?
Well, less of the theory. I think it's time that we had a little gander around and see what we can find in this churchyard.
Just spotted this lovely little headstone. It's very tactile with its little bumpy bits. You can't really read it anymore, but it's very short, very tiny, and it's actually domed at the back, whereas most gravestones are flat both sides. Very interesting, and very different to this rather massive gravestone. This one's a tabletop tomb, a table tomb. You can't really read that one anymore either. It's very nice.
Get down on my hands and knees to see this one. Personally, what I particularly like about these churchyards are these single graves like this, very plain, very simple, trying to decipher what it says. It's obviously some sort of sandstone, I think, and a lot of the words have faded, but I love all the lichen, the different colours of lichen on there, and the style of writing. But just try as hard as I can. I can see there's words on there, but I just cannot make them out.
So most people visiting the church would have muddy feet, or at worst covered in manure, because the roads weren't very tidy back then. And from the Georgian period, there would be such a thing as a boot scraper.
For me, I prefer the graveyards when there's a lot of much bit taller grass and it's allowed to basically just grow along with the gravestones. There is a feeling that this does get mowed quite often, and that for me is just too, I don't know, cosmetic, I suppose. The other thing I've noticed that I particularly like is all the different types of masonry. This is a marble one, which is marvellous, quite tall, quite grand, and then it's next to, I assume that is some sort of sandstone one. So I'm sure in the next video we'll look at the different types of materials that are used for the gravestones. There is clearly so much to see. You know, I think when people come to a churchyard, they just walk through it. We've seen churchyards many times and we take them for granted, don't we?
Yes, I think we do.
And as we said at the beginning, they're very peaceful places. But actually, I think when you do come down, we're probably a bit disrespectful sitting on a table tomb, but I don't think the person in there's going to mind. My
baby is appreciative though, thank you.
Yeah. When you do come in and you sit down and you sort of look at stuff, you probably start to, you know, once a little bit of information and you can start to see things in a different way. Well, I've enjoyed this visit to this wonderful graveyard. Have you?
Yes, me too, I have.
Lots of interesting things, and we could go on and on about it, but I think what we should do is find a smaller church in a perhaps more country situation,
okay.
Smaller village, one of those that have perhaps a bit cut off, and see if we can compare that with this one.
Sounds good to me.
Great, well we'll do that in a separate video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it. There's more in our handbook to explore and learn about, so we're going to get our heads down, do a bit of swatting.
Exciting.
And in the meantime, don't forget to follow, like and subscribe, become a patron, support what we do, that would be grand. And of course, even better, leave a comment, tell us what you think and if you are interested in churchyards and where your favourite one is. Be interesting, wouldn't it?
That would be very interesting.
Yeah.
Yes, please do.
So until next time, from Julia and I in Thacombe in West Sussex, with aeroplanes going overhead.
Helicopters.
on a helicopter, beg your pardon. Until then, goodbye.